everyone, welcome back to another IKEA Foundation week. My name is Ryan. I'm part of the communications team for the IKEA Foundation. I'm the leader of IKEA Foundation Week, and I'm thrilled to have you back here on day 4 of the IKEA Foundation Week. I'm actually really excited for this session because I got to know the IKEA Foundation through something that we're talking about today. We're talking about an eyewitness trip to Jordan, and that's actually what I did in 2015, and it's how I became aware of the work of the IKEA Foundation, aware of the work of refugees and the UN Refugee Agency, and how I eventually started to work for the IKEA Foundation. So thanks so much for having me. Today, I'm really, really excited to have with me 2 amazing guests. The first one is Lilly Carlisle. Hey, Lilly, how are you?
Hey, guys. Nice to join you from Amman in Jordan.
Welcome. We're super happy to have you. Lilly is an external relations officer with UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency in Jordan. And we also have Yannick Mallet. Yannick, hey, hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine. I'm from
You
France.
are a co-worker. Yes, you are a co-worker in IKEA France, and you went on an eyewitness trip, right?
Yeah, it was great. It was a very great experience to leave.
Well, I'm super happy to hear that. It must have been, because you're here talking to us now, so we're super excited to hear a little bit more about that. Really, really good. Yannick, let's start with a question for you. Can you tell us a little bit about what motivated you to apply for the Eyewitness program? Why was this something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I've been involved in my unit in France with the team People and Planet Positive for many years. So I'm working with this team about a lot of different things. And so I decided to apply for Eyewitness Global Citizen Program because I always wanted to be part of a humanitarian program. And I think for me it was really important to see and to be aware what IKEA Foundation does to help and the people in need around the world, because IKEA Foundation does a lot of things. And this kind of project was really nice to see, and like that I will be there just to see and be aware what IKEA Foundation did with the solar panels to help the people in need.
Yeah, thanks, Yannick. And I should just give some context around what IKEA Foundation's Eyewitness program is. Eyewitness is an opportunity for coworkers around the world to go into the field and actually have a chance to see the work of the IKEA Foundation and our partners. And in this case, Yannick, as you said, you actually had a chance to travel from France to Jordan to visit the UNHCR. Wow, that's quite amazing and quite impactful. Lilly, let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. So Jordan hosts 750,000 refugees from 52 different nationalities. And in March 2021, we actually marked the 10th anniversary of the Syrian refugee crisis. Can you tell us a little bit more about the situation for refugees in Jordan?
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, Jordan's home to 750,000 refugees of actually 52 nationalities. And although the stereotype is that most refugees here are Syrian, and that is true, among them we have 660,000 Syrians. We also have refugees from Yemen, from Iraq, from Sudan, from Somalia, who have all fled their home because of conflict, but also a refugee can be someone who's fled their home because they're being persecuted because of religion, race, or even political opinion. So these are people who are incredibly vulnerable and need our support and our help while they're temporarily living in Jordan. And Jordan is actually the second largest host of refugees per capita, per member of the population in the world. So they're really stepping up to welcome refugees. And if you move to the next slide, you can see that refugees actually, on the whole, live in urban areas. There is this stereotype that refugees come and they live in camps. But actually 80% of the refugees here in Jordan, they live in normal towns and cities. So in Amman, where I am right now, which is the capital of Jordan, we have a huge number of refugees living here as well. And half of them are children.
Wow.
Refugees and going to school and trying to rebuild their lives in a new country. So they've been through a lot, but they've also got such a bright future ahead of them. And as you mentioned, it's been 10 years since the Syrian conflict began. And that's 10 years that the majority of the refugees here have been here in Jordan. And for some of these children, that's been their whole lives. for us in UNHCR, we're really working to ensure that they can get their basic services, they can go to school, they can get the healthcare, but also that they have job opportunities to go into once they graduate, and that their parents also are able to provide for them. It's increasingly harder, especially amid the COVID-19 pandemic, which is kind of affecting us all. But here at UNHCR in Jordan, we're trying our best to help everyone who's in need, really.
Wow. Thanks so much for the small snapshot into the work that you're doing. And it's such impactful work, as both Yannick and I have had a chance to see. Just to keep going with you for a second, you joined us on the IWitness trip in 2019. Why do you think working with corporate partners such as the IKEA Foundation and IKEA, of course, is so important?
I think the obvious answer is that it's a source of funding, and the money that the IWitness people go back and raise in stores obviously has a direct impact on refugees here in Jordan. But it's not only financial. I think that the skills that the corporate sector can offer, and also act as an advocacy partner on behalf of refugees, is really important. For instance, not only our partnership with IKEA is not only about the financials, but also about providing refugees with jobs. So here in Jordan, we also have a local charity, a local NGO called the Jordan River Foundation, which employs refugees who are skilled in sewing and making handicrafts to actually make products which are then go on and sold in IKEA stores. And this is a really important part of providing livelihoods to refugees. And we need that cooperation with the corporate partners in the private sector to be able to do that.
It's such a big issue, and of course, no one organization or certainly one person can manage this on their own. So I think it's so great that we're able to work together to help address this.
Definitely.
Back to you. When you, how did you feel when you arrived at the Azraq refugee camp and met a refugee family as part of your IWitness trip? And what did you learn about refugees living in Jordan?
Yeah, that was a really incredible experience. I learned a lot when I went there. Like Lilly was saying, even if most of the refugees in Jordan live in the cities rather than camps, there is still camps in Jordan with refugees. And with the team, with the IWitness team, we had the chance to go and visit Azraq, the camp in Azraq, where thousands of refugees live. I was really amazed to see how big it was. Really, really big. The camp was spread across the desert. With I think it's one of the biggest camp in the world, the refugees camp. And so later, then we went to meet a Syrian family who was living in the tent, and we asked them questions about all they have been through in the past, and what was important for them to get the electricity. And so we learned that having electricity for them, it was really important. Like, for example, to store the food for the kids at night to do the homework. And even in the camp at night, we could see like the camp at night. It was bright, and they have shops, and it's really safe now, because before there was no electricity. So we just questioned them about what was the difference between having electricity. Now for them it's really important, and it was really incredible to speak with them, to see the kids, the mother, the father, and it was really nice. I will remember all my life, I guess.
Yeah, talk about that life-changing experience, right? It really makes a difference, doesn't it? Before I ask my next question, I should just remind the audience as well that if you have any questions for Lilly or Yannick, you can feel free to put them in the comments, and we'll do our very best to try and get to them in this session if we have time, or if not, we'll try and answer them a little bit later. So Lilly, what was your experience when you first started working in Jordan?
So I've actually now been in Jordan for around 2.5 years. And I think, as we were speaking about, when I first came, had the idea that most refugees live in a camp and they're very dependent on like humanitarian aid to get by, and kind of the same impressions that they're just here waiting to go back home. But that's definitely not the case. Like, the people I've met in the last 2.5 years are the most resilient people. They are trying to make a living for themselves, send their children to school, and really try and contribute to society here in Jordan while they're living here. Obviously, most of the refugees here hope to go home one day, but at the moment that isn't possible. And so they're really searching for work and opportunities where they can make a contribution. I've met refugees who are skilled, everything from being skilled computer developers to just being farmers and wanting their own slice of land and grow vegetables to sell in the local market. So there's a really diverse range of refugees who live here. And yeah, I just want to emphasize to everyone who's watching that to try and like fight those stereotypes and have an open mind when it comes to talking to your friends and family about what a refugee is and how we can actually help them as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most impactful things that I walked away with, is that a refugee is just like you and me. It just happened to be the place in the world that they were born, or the place in the world that they live. And that's the reason that they're a refugee. Otherwise, it could have happened to me in Canada or you, Yannick, in France, just because of the circumstances. So a refugee is just a person who's been displaced, and it has nothing to do with them as a person. Yannick, I know that this is a tough question, but can you pick just 2 or 3 highlights from your IWitness trip and tell us a little bit about that?
Highlights in that trip for me and for all the teams. I was in that trip in Jordan. There was many highlights, many times, many heartbreaking times, and many good times to share with the team and with the people we met. I remember the first one was when we visiting the registration center in Erbil, near the Syrian border. It was really nice to see all these people, all the NGOs from all different nationalities. Then we have lunch, we share a lot of things together, and it was nice to see then everybody sharing the same empathy for the people in distress. And it was really nice this morning in the registration center. And then after that, I remember as well when I went to visited a school in Erbil. This school, there is a program in this school. It's called Renewable Energy Program. That means they have solar panels on the roof of the school. And so we went to visit the school. It was a school with boys, Syrian refugees boys. They have class in the afternoon. So it was really nice, and I was really impressed when I meet the Syrian student with dreams of becoming a pilot, an architect, a chef, an engineer. They all have dreams. Like when we ask them what they wanted to do in the future for jobs, and they were really like with the eyes, open eyes, and with a lot of dreams about what they're going to do in the future. And after that, then we went to play football with them, and it was something that I will remember all my life as well. Really good experience. And then finally, the last day when we went to visit the Azwad camp, we visited as well the solar panels farm in the camp, financed by IKEA Foundation. And so we were able to see after that at the sunset, when the sun came down, we could see all the camp like from the hill, getting bright, spot by spot, and we were still playing with the kids football. And because of these solar panels, you can see what IKEA Foundation did to help these people to get electricity to have a better life. And it was really good time as well at the sunset. Like that, I will be like, I witness what was going on when the sun get down. It was really nice to see. So it was all these opportunities in this trip in Jordan. There were so many, so I could speak and speak. Like when I speak with my friends about it, and I could speak all night, but I won't have time to tell you everything because it was 5 days, but really intense.
No, it sounds like an absolutely impactful trip, Yannick. Thanks so much for sharing just those few highlights, and I can recognize a couple of them from my trip as well.
Okay.
Lilly,
Yeah.
Lilly, over the past year, of course, a pandemic has spread across the world, and I can only imagine that for vulnerable people such as refugees, both living in camp and outside of camp, that must be quite a challenge. Can you talk a little bit about the situation in Jordan and how that's been?
Yeah, it's been absolutely devastating, actually. So we've had refugees who have been previously self-sufficient and hadn't had to ask for humanitarian aid at all over the last 10 years, but who've now been approaching UNHCR. A lot of the refugees here actually work in what we call the informal sector as daily workers, which essentially means that they go out every day in the morning and look for work and get paid by the hour. But as all the lockdowns and curfews kind of occurred, they had to stay home and they weren't able to get that income. And so they haven't been able to do things like pay their rent or cover their basic needs, put food on the table for their families. And so it's really been a harsh impact on the families, which is going to have a long-term effect. As UNHCR, we're trying to help as much as possible. So we provide cash assistance to around 33,000 families every month in normal times, but we've also added to that list around 56,000 families during the pandemic, just so that they can continue to pay their rent, put a roof over their heads, and also pay off some of these debts that they have got themselves into. But as I said, I think it's going to have a long-term effect, and we're really looking now about how we can provide more job opportunities for them and livelihoods and development. And actually, that's one of the main themes for World Refugee Day this year, which is coming up on Sunday, on the 20th of June. So everyone keep an eye out for activities happening around that. But yeah, we're trying to include refugees more and more in national systems and societies to make sure that they are able to rebuild their lives and continue to kind of meet their basic needs for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, it's very easy, I think, to feel that our personal experience, wherever we happen to be in the world, is the worst experience when it comes to COVID. But I think it's really important to remember that there are many out there who have some really tough situations, and very good for us to think about how we can support them. Lilly, there's a question from the audience. We have Alexandra asking here, how much investment is there in renewable energies and sustainable farming education for the people of Jordan and the refugees that I think they're saying that they host?
A lot, I think, is the easy answer. As Yannick spoke about, in both of the refugee camps here in Jordan, we have the solar panel plants, which have now been in operation for about 3 or 4 years, which provide electricity for all the refugees who live in the camp, which is amazing, really. And that also helps us as UNHCR reduce our electricity bills. Instead of having to pay for the electricity for the populations of people who live there, it just comes from the sun. But also, I think it's important to note that Jordan is actually one of the most water scarce countries in the world. And so with the extra influx of people who fled Syria, agencies like UNHCR will be trying to really work with the government to reduce the water intake and kind of recycle and reuse what's already out there, so that it doesn't put an extra burden on the local populations who live here. And I think one of the really cool initiatives for me is hydroponics. So I don't know if you guys know about hydroponics, but it's essentially growing vegetables, fruit, agriculture, but instead of being in soil and on the land, it's kind of in pipes, and it uses water which circles around a system. I wish I had a photo to show you, but it uses much less water, and it also still produces the same fruit and veg. And a lot of our refugees were actually farmers back in Syria. They came from rural areas such as in Dara and southern Syria. And so when we kind of teach them these new technologies, they're really receptive. This is something they know, they've worked with their whole lives, but just a new way of doing it in a new context. So that's one of the things which is continuing to go on in the camps, but also outside the camps.
Really great. Thanks so much. A question that maybe both of you can answer. We'll see. In your work and through the trip, you probably met some really unbelievable people, some unforgettable people. Do either or both of you, and I'll start with Lilly, have an example? Can you tell us about some of these people, one of their stories maybe? Oh,
it's hard to pick. I've met so many refugees over the years. I think one person who I met recently who really sticks in my mind is a lady called Jamila. So she's a single mother of 4 kids, and her husband passed away in the conflict in Syria, and she fled by herself, and she's now just like trying to look after her children as much as possible. She goes out every day to try and find work so that they can put food on the table. But the one thing that she's insistent on more than anything else is that she continues to send her kids to school. And whenever I visit her, I think I visited her like 4 or 5 times now. And whenever I come, like the kids obviously want to come up and welcome. But now they're all like online on their computers. She's like, no, you stay in your rooms, you continue learning. You're not even allowed 1 minute break, because she really wants them to be able to realize their dreams. So yeah, that's someone who sticks in my head, I think.
Of course, I was muted there. That's such an amazing story, and education, of course, is such an important issue when you're displaced, right? Yannick, I'm not sure if you have a particular story that sticks out in your mind?
Not really a story, because I'm not living in Jordan, in Amman, like Lilly, so I was just there like for 5 days, but I met a lot of people. But like I said before, when I was in the registration center in Erbil, we have the opportunity to have lunch with all the people who works and doing a lot of things for the refugees. And I feel really amazed, because there is all these people working together for the same cause, and they're all from different nationalities. So we were like maybe 20, 25 people. I'm traveling a lot, but it's the first time I've been around the table with so many different nationalities, from Kurdistan, from China, from Chile, from Japan, from England, like Lilly, and we were French as well. But it was really nice to see that there is people all together from all these different parts of the world working together to help the people in need.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even those 5 days leave such a lasting impression on you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Lilly, healthcare, of course. I mean, I think before we wrap up, we can't not talk a little bit about healthcare. We got a question from Allison here asking if you work on any healthcare projects related to tuberculosis in the refugee camps. Do you have a response for that?
So in Jordan, TB isn't really that big issue as it is in some other places in the world. But in terms of our healthcare programs, yes, we do have both primary healthcare facilities like GPs, doctors, surgeries in the camps, and also there's one hospital in each camp, and they kind of provide all manner of healthcare, from your basic kind of just normal daily checkups with the doctor to more serious surgeries. And then we also work with a range of healthcare clinics outside the camp in urban areas. But what the main thing which is great about Jordan is that refugees can actually just access the national healthcare system. So they can walk in and they can say, I'm ill, and they will get the support they need. Obviously, that sometimes comes with a fee. Sometimes they have to pay for that treatment, but it is at the same rate that Jordanians would have to pay. So there's no difference or discrimination between access to healthcare based on nationality here, which is amazing, really. And if refugees aren't able to meet that financial need, if they can't pay for their healthcare costs, then we're here as UNHCR to step in and help. And I think also that inclusion has continued throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. So from the start, if a refugee got COVID, they were able to get treatment through the national healthcare system. And that's extended now to the rollout of the vaccination. So Jordan was actually one of the first countries in the world to start vaccinating refugees. And now we're in May, we have a really significant number of refugees here who have received their vaccine alongside the local Jordanian population. So it's definitely one of the successes of Jordan in terms of how they've opened their doors and are welcoming refugees.
It's quite inspiring to hear what Jordan does for refugees, especially when there's so many, and it covers quite a good chunk of people. And yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, you've both been absolutely incredible, and I want to thank you both for coming to talk with us a little bit today. As Lilly mentioned a little bit earlier, coming very, very soon, this Sunday, in fact, is World Refugee Day. It's next Sunday, I think, right? It's the 20th of June. So World Refugee Day is coming up very, very soon. We, of course, have a story that we've been talking about at IKEA Foundation Week, Aya's story, which we're going to show you in just a few minutes. but I know that UNHCR is also doing a lot around World Refugee Day. IKEA is doing a little bit around World Refugee Day. So please make sure to check that out and participate in any way that you can to help change the narrative around refugees and raise awareness around this incredibly important work. So with that, just a big thanks, Yannick and Lilly, really appreciate it. Any closing words? Final thoughts?
Not for me, but I just want to thank all the people from IKEA Foundation, and also Yannick. Like, it was great to meet him in person when he was here in Amman, and his enthusiasm and continued engagement with refugees is amazing. So if everyone else can be like him, then it would be a better world.
Yeah, and for me, it was a really great experience, and I'm sure in the future I can just recommend all the co-workers in IKEA around the world just to try this trip, and it will be a big difference when you come back home and you feel life differently than after that. Yeah,
absolutely. And I do see just one last question coming in. Let me answer that before we wrap up. Will we do something similar on other platforms so all IKEA coworkers can hear this? This will be very complementary with the refugee project. Well, Nicola, IKEA Foundation Week is kind of our big launch and our big way to create awareness around the work that the IKEA Foundation is doing through our partners. So we have some of these sessions available right now. There was, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think another live session with Selco Foundation earlier this morning, another one tomorrow. There's a few other sessions throughout the week. So check out the website, ikeafoundation.org, for more information on the live sessions that we have. Also check out the app that we have, the augmented reality app, where you can step into the world of the IKEA Foundation to learn a little bit more about these amazing partners, UNHCR, of course, being one of them. You can literally step into an apartment of a typical refugee. And of course, we're always open to engaging even more with you. So please reach out if you'd like to hear anything else. With that, big thanks again. I'm going to now bring on a video that we've pulled together for IKEA Foundation Week from Aya. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Refugees are people. We cannot separate these two words. Any one of us can be refugee. I'm Aya, and I want everyone to have the right to seek asylum and find safe refuge.
The IKEA Foundation is committed to improving the livelihoods of families and children who have been forced to flee. Over the last 10 years, they have worked with partners such as UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, to enable over 1 million refugees like Aya Mohammed Abdullah to become self-reliant and build new lives for themselves.
When I was in Iraq, I lived a normal childhood. But when war comes, my dad said, we cannot stay here anymore. After going to Syria, we were hoping that this is gonna be our final destination. But the war actually chased us again from Syria to Turkey. I was 16 years old, and I felt for the first time that I am not the same as a citizen is, you know? Like, we are not able to access rights just because we are refugees. And I was really depressed, and I was thinking, no, I cannot make it here. But then I saw other people like me, and because of everything I've been through, I felt that I can help in somehow. And this is how I started it. And I worked 5 years with the UNHCR in Turkey. I worked with refugees from different backgrounds. And after actually being here in Geneva, they said, we want to give you the position of a youth delegate for the UNHCR. This position gave me the chance to speak with world leaders. And I was so happy that these leaders listened to stories about refugees from refugees themselves. We are talking about more than 70 million people, including refugees, asylum seekers, stateless. And the UNHCR is trying to make these people's life easier. I would like people to see me as a young woman who is trying to have a better future, even with everything that she lived through. And I want them to see me with the eye of potential, not only as someone who they feel sorry for. If we reach each other without status, without sticking identities or stereotypes about them, they're where we can make a change.
The IKEA Foundation brings hope to families, young people, and vulnerable children around the world. They support partners that empower people in low-income communities to create sustainable livelihoods and tackle climate change to ensure that there is a livable planet for future generations.